Welcome to the work and special session, July 8th, 2025. It's now called to order. I'd like to ask for a motion to go into special session. Can I get a second? All in favor? Okay, we're now in special session. First up, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval of an ordinance amending the city code by adding chapter 173-32, prohibited lodging out of doors.
By adding chapter 173-2, prohibited lodging of outdoors, which makes it unlawful for any person to sleep and or lodge out of doors in any public place within the city limits of Hagerstown, Maryland. This prohibited cannot even read. This extends to vehicles parked on public places. Only Hagerstown Police Department law enforcement officers will enforce this ordinance. The ordinance includes a sunset provision that it shall extend 6 months after its effective date unless renewed by the mayor and city council.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to reiterate before we pass this, for the folks that are interested in this ordinance, two things. One is the city already largely has ordinances that address this very thing. We know that. This is for the unique cases in which individuals press the city to address it in a more deliberate and immediate fashion for compliance. The second is this only applies to city property. So all of those issues that folks may have concern with on properties that are owned by the county, by the state, by other private property owners, it doesn't provide the ability for the Hagerstown Police Department to usurp the rules and regulations and use this ordinance on those other properties. This isn't a silver bullet any more than the hotel registration ordinance was a silver bullet, any more than rental registration, habitual offender, all of those other things we adopt. They are tools in the toolbox and pieces to the puzzle, but they are certainly not a one-size-fits-all, fix-everything ordinance.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up, I ask for a motion for acceptance of purchase of portable remote firing cart.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for mayor and council approval of the purchase of a portable remote firing cart at a total cost of $15,725. Funding will come from the FY23 Coverdell Forensic Science Improvement Grant.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That's all I have for special session. Do I get a motion to leave special session? I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Special session is now closed. We'll move to work session. And first up, we have the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad Locomotive 202 donation agreement. Mr. Eric Dykey.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
It's just not to go through the history again, but just a quick summary of how we got to this point. And that the city has locomotive train 202 that sits in City Park. So a number of years ago, the city proceeded to try and do a cosmetic restoration to the train itself and to expand the covering over it and do a few other amenities. Everything, our research indicated it would be about an $800,000 project. It was bid twice. The first time it was bid, they got 0 bids. The second time it was bid, they got 1 bid at 3.3 million, more or less. So the costs were way above what the city had expected. And so there were some options, one of which was to seek additional funds to try and cover those costs. Another was to revise the restoration plans to try and reduce the costs. One was to leave the locomotive pretty much as is and just continue on as it's been, or to revisit an offer that was from the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. They're located in Cumberland, Maryland. They'd been to the city before. City wasn't really interested a few years ago. But after this, the city said, you know, maybe that is a real option. So Western Maryland Scenic Road came back to the city in September of '24. They presented their plan again, which was a full restoration of the train so that they could put it back on the tracks to do scenic runs up in the Western Maryland, Cumberland area. And so staff was directed to pursue a contract or a donation agreement with Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. So what you have in your packet is that agreement. That's been talked about among staff and our attorneys. And so just a few highlights of that agreement is the city agrees to donate the locomotive to Western Maryland for a sum of $1. The purpose of the donation is for the repair and full restoration of locomotive for scenic railroad tours. Western Maryland Scenic Road would bear all costs for relocation of the locomotive to Western Maryland and for the restoration. No parts or components of the locomotive shall be used for other locomotive restorations without express written consent of the city. The proposed completion of the project is 10 years. They think they can do it quicker, but it's all based on 10 years. And Western Maryland Scenic Road would provide residents of the city of Hagerstown with a 25% discount on ticket purchases for any Western Maryland Scenic operated excursions in perpetuity. There's a lot more in agreement than that, obviously, but that's kind of the highlights of it. So I've brought back the donation agreement to you for questions, comments.
I have just a comment. I know, we're looking at the draft agreement. My concern has been the delivery or time frame of when this transfer will happen.
Yes.
So I just wanted to read for the public's awareness. WMSR shall transport the locomotive to its facilities in Cumberland, Maryland, no later than 180 days from the date of closing. Failure to transport the locomotive to WMSR facilities within 180 days shall be grounds for the city to terminate the agreement, in which WMSR shall return it to its original location in City Park. So I just wanted to make that point known, that it's in the agreement, because that concern of the timeframe
I mean,
was for me.
what that says basically is, or if you read into it is, they don't move it in that 180 days or 6 months. They obviously didn't take it anywhere anyway, so it's not really being returned, but it doesn't really go anywhere either.
But the city would have grounds to
Yes,
terminate the
That's
agreement.
correct. That is correct.
Right.
Through communications with that group, the cost to move it would probably be closer to 150,000. I think we've talked about 100,000, but I think it's be closer to 150,000. They have some of that funding. Should the city go through with this donation agreement, then they can really start pushing towards a fundraising, you know, to have it relocated and they get it restored. There was an Exhibit B that's attached. That's a timeline. That's a very general timeline. That's probably at the very end of your memo. And they show phase 1, 2, 3, and that sort of thing. So it gives you an idea, without going into great detail of the restoration, of how they would proceed on this 10-year project.
So, I mean, if I understand the agreement correctly, if we agree to proceed with this document, the first step is they're going to bring individuals in with expertise to determine the functionality.
The viability of
Yeah.
restoration.
Within that 60-day period, there could be a determination that, hey, this thing requires more repair than we're interested in pursuing.
Yes.
Thank you for letting us look at it, city. It's all yours
Yes.
to continue to retain and,
Yes.
know.
They have looked at it. They have spent some time on it. And so far, they feel it can be restored.
And then step number 2 is, as long as they raise the $150,000 to move it,
Mhm.
then we could proceed to step 2, which is, you know, they secure the appropriate mechanisms to transport it.
Correct.
And we would have evaluation over that process as well.
We would have what?
Well, in other words, we're not going to allow an entity to come in and sort of partially tear down in
No.
preparation for moving and then go, this is more than we thought. Sorry, we left it in pieces for you.
Yeah.
But we bit off more than we can chew. And then the third is, if they deem it to be operable and if they're able to raise funds to relocate it, it would be relocated to the facility in Cumberland to begin the process of restoration. And the general or rough timeline in Exhibit B provides that expectation that would happen within a 10-year period, right?
Yes.
But there's no checks and balances within the current proposed agreement document that indicates that they got to do, you've got to get to step A by date X and step B by, date Y, et cetera. In other words,
Yeah. I don't
at
think
what
so.
point are we going to feel, let's say it does get through step one, it does get through step two, and it does make it there.
Yeah.
I'm not confident that's going to happen at the moment. But if it does, let's say it does get to that point, and I think I've asked this question in prior iterations of this discussion and document. What happens if we do get to like year 7 and it has done nothing more than what it has done at its current location? I'm trying to formulate in my mind for an administration that is here after we're gone, how that preparation for the possibility that it's returning would go. You know what I mean?
I understand that.
You're not here, I'm not here.
Yep.
Folks at the table aren't here. How do we,
I think if they don't
Push
complete
the
this in
button.
10 years, they're supposed to return it. But realistically, we're talking about, something that's massive.
I know.
I don't know how that would happen or how we would force them to do that.
I guess my question is this,
Unless we spent the money and went after it.
I guess that's what I'm saying is like, if it's costing $150,000 to move, just to move it
Yeah.
once, it sort of puts us in a position to identify the funding, set it aside, or ensure that entity sets it aside for that possibility. And here just the thought process. Somewhere in here, it might say that they have to set aside $10,000 a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you get to that point where, you've got it ready for up and running, great. You got $100,000 extra to put in that thing to make it, really good, when it does get up and operational, or we've at least created some escrow, you know what I mean? That we can, that future city administration doesn't look back and say, "Man, didn't do it, how are we gonna afford this bill?" We at least have 2/3 of the bill covered for that future administration.
Understood.
And I don't think $10,000 is too much money to ask an organization that is working, you know what I mean, to raise $150K to move it one direction.
Yeah, that's not in there.
I know, I'm just sort of thinking out loud as I'm reading this thing, like,
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the what ifs. And the what if, or if it doesn't make it to where, folks envision it being in 10 years should be okay, then what now?
Yeah.
Just trying to prepare for the what now,
Okay.
in a way that doesn't have someone like yourself coming to the table 10 years from now and going, "Hey, we need you." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm hoping it's not me.
me too. Me too. I'm going, hey, how, the good news is we're getting the engine back. The bad news is we have no way to pay to get it here.
Are you suggesting that we add that language in there?
I
Or
I
you're just
would
talking it
just,
right now?
I,
I would agree with Councilman.
I'm just asking to add that just so that it sort of covers those bases. And again, if all goes as, you know, WSMR expects, that's simply funding to use, you know what I mean, for an item they already wanted to invest in. In other words, we're not asking them to give us the money, saying, hey, you've set aside yourselves, you know, a nice savings account to spend on that item.
Mhm.
And I just don't think that's I don't think it's a big number.
Okay.
Was that, the 800,000 figure you threw, was that just to basically sheet metal the train just to get it back to visual repair?
I wasn't part of that originally, of that whole process, but my understanding was basically a cosmetic restoration. There's an outer skin that needs to be restored and a bunch of other parts and needs cleaned up and painted and that sort of thing. But it was also some work. The tracks would be extended, the train would be pulled forward, so it'd be closer. Wouldn't be set so far back in the park, it'd be pulled forward, and then the pavilion itself would have amenities built to it. I think the restoration was at 500,000 and the rest of the money was the rest of the project,
Okay.
is what I recall. And staff had talked to, I think, the train museum in Philadelphia was getting their advice from them. And so that's where they were getting numbers. And the first time it got bid, nobody was interested. Or the restorers were busy, the timing's not right or whatever. So they waited another 6 months, put out the bid again, and we got one bid. And so so after 2 bids and seeking funding, so we had to return a federal grant because it just wasn't close to what we could do.
And you're saying after 10 years, if they don't do anything to it, it would be forfeited back to the city, and you're saying that you don't know how we would be able to get somebody else to pay for that to get it back here, right?
Well, there's
Because
supposed
who
to
knows
be,
how much it'll be in 10 years to be able to
Yeah.
do something like that? Okay.
When was the last time that they looked at it?
I'd say within the last 6 months. I forget the
Okay.
exact day, but they sent a few people down there, probably over there 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, it's recent history.
Oh,
Yeah. But I'm sure they could only go so far on it. As they move it, they have to disassemble it. It'll be on, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different trucks. And so when they disassemble it, they'll have a better idea as they disassemble it. But right now, they feel pretty confident.
Any other questions for Eric on this?
We'll just address that with them then. Okay.
You said you'd like to see more or something more in the timeline?
Yeah, or a
Or,
bit more benchmarks and things in the timeline. Kind of,
more
I don't
details?
really want to, an agreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric.
All right, next up is the power supply increase, PJM capacity rate. Mr. Nathan Friedinger.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. Here to update you on the upcoming PJM capacity supply rate. That we'll see some changes to our purchase power cost adjustment rate. The PJM capacity prices increased from a daily rate of about $2,300 to a little over $16,000 per day. That equates to a little over $5 million per year annually that will be recouped to us through the purchase power cost adjustment rate that's calculated monthly. I project that the rate on average throughout the year will increase about 1.64 cents per kilowatt hour. This doesn't just affect Hagerstown, it's region-wide. You see the map below on the first, or at the bottom of the page, the first page. The blue areas indicate everyone's seeing this effect. What's happened was there's been a huge demand for capacity in the most recent capacity market. The chart on the second page, you can see where the 2025 line sort of skews off from the other future projections. Things were introduced such as large data centers, and onshoring industrial manufacturing. And also there's been a push to decrease capacity on the other side to eliminate a lot of high carbon emitting generation plants. And they're also, it seems they're having some trouble finding new locations to site new generation. So that really affected that market. What we're going to start looking into, and what we can do is look into shaving our peak load contribution. What that means is during the peak months, which typically happen in summer on the PJM system, they look at the 5 highest peak demands, and they identify who is contributing most to those 5 peaks. Now, if Hagerstown is able to respond and offset those peaks during those periods of high demand, we can lower our peak load contribution, which then recalculates the formula, and our megawatt hour a day rate will then decrease. We have 2 options there. Of course, there's solar, but as you know, within the Hagerstown service territory, there's not a lot of real estate and the acreage required to have a significant impact on our peak rate. Another option is energy storage, battery units. There's a smaller footprint for those. Technologies change. They can produce a fair amount of megawatt hours in an instant and last up to 3 or 4 hours on the grid. So we have our consultants looking into that in some fashion. I don't recommend we own the infrastructure, but perhaps partner with a developer. There will be some cost sharing there. There wasn't a big market for this in the past, obviously, because the capacity rate was so low. There wasn't a lot of savings at that, in years past. But obviously, there is some or money savings there that we could share with a third party. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to.
What does PJM stand for?
I believe it's Penn, Jersey, Maryland. An RTO is the regional transmission operator.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously, we're all sitting here and we're seeing the number at the top of the page, and the increase is significant. It is an understatement, right?
Yeah.
It's going up, what, 8 times?
Yeah, it's
current
about,
amount?
yeah, it was about 900% total of the market rate. But then our peak load contribution also decreased from the previous year. So after calculating it all, it ends up being about 8 times or 800% to us.
So, in my house, I don't receive city electric. I'm in the Potomac Edison
Right.
service territory. I think for the average homeowner that will be impacted by this, maybe I'm just trying to understand, because it says roughly 0.0164 per kilowatt hour. So does that mean the per kilowatt hour is going up to the 0.11150?
Right, yeah, so today's invoices are 1.1150 less the 10164. Today's rate.
So what's the rate right now? You mean it's less the 0.0164?
Yeah, 1115 minus 0164.
Right. So I want to make sure I understand this because I'm looking at a number going from 2,300 to 16,000 daily, right?
Mhm.
But you're saying as a customer, it's only going to increase my bill by 15 hundredths of a cent per kilowatt hour?
Right, so, yeah, the 16,222 times 365 days, you get 5 million.
Right.
Divide that by your total annual sales.
Yeah.
At 31, or 310,000, or 310 million, sorry. Kilowatt hours, that's where you come up with the 0.0164.
So in terms of dollars and cents, it's not going to have, in other words, you see the two numbers at the top going up significantly. It's not going to have that dynamic of an impact or significant of an impact on the average customer's
Right,
bill.
there's a lot of other things in play.
Right.
On the PJM pass-through charges. This is just one component of it. That one component of it went from 2,300 to 16,000.
That would impact the overall rate?
Right, yeah, so there's other things that are passed through, like transmission,
Right.
energy's the big one. Energy's the big piece of the pie.
And all providers are faced with the same issue?
Yes. Potomac Edison, I just looked at their tariff as I was drafting this. Their rates are about 12.5 cents per kilowatt hour. I'm projecting ours at 11.1 cents per kilowatt hour, but
Still, right, okay.
it depends on the number of sales and where that actual, where that PPCA rate will
Right.
calculate out to be.
And
So
Nathan,
310 million kilowatt hours is on the low end, so I might be overestimating or over projecting slightly, but it's usually between 310 million kilowatt hours and about 325. So
And Nathan did prepare, and it's on our website, what the actual estimated dollars per month on an average customer's electric bill will be. And kind of like a frequently asked question flyer, if you will, so that our customers could look at it and see, okay, how's this, how much is my electric bill really going up for our average residential customer? And then the Public Service Commission also requires that we put a note on the bill. So that information's also going out on the bill saying, hey, expect this increase. And that it's essentially a pass-through cost that we don't have any control over it. We just have to, it's a pass-through. But like I said, we did put, Nathan did prepare a frequently asked, similar to a frequently asked question brochure, pamphlet for our customers.
Do we also provide, like I said, I'm not a city electric customer, but would it be helpful if we don't, do we provide something like, here are the 10 things you can do on a daily basis?
right, we have a link on our website for energy saving tips. That actually it's directed to the Maryland Department of Energy. They have a pretty good website that gives residents and even commercial businesses.
Like I tell my kids, like, you can only use the dryer at nighttime,
Right. Well,
because it's not as hot out. You know what I
for the
mean?
air conditioner, yeah.
That's right.
Right.
To limit the air. Now, they probably think they live in a gulag, but you know what I mean? It's what you do when you have 5 kids, you know what I mean? You're like, hey, manage this stuff. So that's why I'm curious.
so, you said you had the frequently asked question on there. What was the answer to that? Because I think a lot of people are gonna wanna know that that dollar amount?
Well,
You know, like this, just the average?
yeah,
like-
rough amount. I mean, say our average customers use about 1,000 kilowatt hours a month on average throughout the year. So apply that to what I project the rate increase will be, it's $16.40 per month.
So an average $16
On-
additional on
on
their,
average.
that
And then
they'll
their
see on
total,
their
their total,
electric bill a month.
yeah, and their total annual bill projected, it would be $111.50.
Say that again?
A year.
$111.50.
Oh, okay.
For the annual.
So residents can assume the increase starting August 1st?
Right, yeah, we should, it started in the market, beginning June 1st. And once we receive the June bill here this month, we'll calculate the new PPCA rate and apply it in August.
And they'll have a notice on this upcoming bill, right?
It's been on, it's on the bills, yes.
So on the website, the other day I went on there to pay my bill, and it even give, certain ways that where you can, help pay your bill or just stay below. I can't remember the wording of it. I think that's good to kind of highlight that more. So maybe, I mean, just speaking for myself, you go in there to pay your bill, you know, just trying to figure out ways that you can keep it down, pay it, not get shut off notice. How do we help people know that they have that backing to get help from the city to pay their electric bill?
I mean, every year annually, we publish the customer rights responsibilities. It kind of touches on that. We have it on the bills, we have it on the website, Facebook. I mean, that's,
I guess I'm thinking of a dollar amount, like, say they get their bill, it's $200. But if they know that if they can at least pay that $50, it can avoid a cutoff notice. Like, is there something like that in play to where it's not like, oh, you gotta pay your whole bill, that's the cutoff? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to think of a way to help people understand how to navigate that website to where if their bill is that much, especially with the increase. I'm trying to think of that. I might be trying to think of that for myself.
right, I mean, there's, the average payment plan is available to customers.
That's what I was thinking of, the payment plan. So what does that entail?
Well, there's the average payment plan, but then there's also, if a customer calls in with a need, that they can't pay their bill, something, they have a circumstance, the reps always work with the customer to come up with some sort of payment plan. What you don't want to do is come up with a payment plan that gets them further behind.
Right, so that's what I'm thinking, like,
Right.
what can they know that they can pay?
And there's also links to the various agencies that would go for bill pay assistance, CAC. When I was down there doing that job, we would work with the customer, and as the customer came back, we would always start with, can you pay half of it? And if they say, well, you can't pay, a lot of times what you'll get is, I can't pay any of it. That's not a payment plan. And that's only a way to fail for that person, because they're just gonna get another bill in another 28 days. So they try to work with the customer to come up with a mutually agreeable amount based upon how big the bill is. We always do that the first time. Now, when you come back the second time and either the payment plan has been broken or they haven't paid enough, then that conversation has to start again. The key to it is communication. Is that if someone is not able to pay a bill, don't just ignore the bill and don't pay it. Call in and talk with a rep. Reps are there to help you. Every rep we have now is experienced and has done this with multiple people. And they will work with you. The last thing we want to do is terminate service. And we will do what we have to do, or what we can do to try to help them out. that may also be a topic to come back that we could bring our customer service manager in and talk with you all about. We haven't had that conversation in quite a while about, what we see in arrearage for water and for electric. And then exactly what you've asked for, what we can offer to the customer as a way to try to help them not get to the point where they're in a hole they can't get out of.
Correct.
And just one further thing on that, anybody who receives a notification of termination, there is language on there that says that exact same thing.
Right.
If you're unable, please contact us.
Right.
To make a payment plan arrangement, and we can't give a minimum dollar amount, or this is what you need, because it depends on the usage, the amount of your bill.
Right.
Because again, the last thing you want to do is set up a payment plan for what's past due, also know when you have to be able to pay that and ongoing new bills that are being generated, since it's monthly.
And they can explain the average payment plan also. It is not a budget plan. It's an average payment over 13 months. The bill is averaged out, and then that rolls on a continuing basis. It's not a $120 every month, say, for example.
Right.
It's on a rolling basis, so that if you're like this, like I have baseboard heat. So in the wintertime, I'm up here. In summertime, I'm down here. So what that does, it smooths the curve out. So then I'm paying an amount that changes because of my kilowatt usage changes over time. So that's what an average payment plan is, and that's all stipulated through PSC also. So you just have to be current on a bill. You have to be current before you can go on the average payment plan. And we do that every day.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nathan and Nancy?
Is this chart on the second page, is that for the entire
PGM.
PGM area?
Yeah.
Not just our service, okay.
Thankfully.
It's just, you're right, I mean,
Well, yeah, and, so yeah, the RTO, but it also includes, I believe, the BG&E and the Dominion piece too.
okay.
So it's everything that's not gray.
You talk about the industrial onshoring, is that like, farms and things like that? You're talking
No,
about?
that's, bringing in industrial manufacturing back into the United States.
So let's use the example right across the river, Spring Mills. They're building a huge steel manufacturing plant, and I know that because we have area down there where they've added to, they're going to do it entirely through electric. Would that be one of the items where they're putting that in? It's going to generate, it's going to create a huge daily demand for energy production that'll draw
Right.
from the
And
system.
there's also electrification. The state of Maryland is looking to go carbon neutral and pretty much to lower the natural gas use in the
Right.
state of Maryland. So anything, anybody with dryers or stoves or even oil heat, they're pushing to electric heat pumps. Okay,
Anything else, Council?
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry I didn't have better news.
Good.
Yes. All right, next up is subrecipient grant agreement revisions, Main Street Startup Grant. Mr. Chris Simerlin.
Hello. So I'm here to bring forward essentially a updated revised version of the subrecipient agreement that we have for our Main Street Startup Grant. Once again, it comes from funding from Project Restore with the state of Maryland. We have had previous approvals under this program. We've been working through the process with a number of businesses. As we have been working through that, the state has come back to us and asked us to modify our agreement for a couple items. And this is basically the revised version in red line in your packet. Just kind of doing a quick summary. Key revisions included removing the landlord from the subrecipient agreement per their request, and providing additional clarification on the hold harmless language, as well as confirming that the property address in question is within the city of Hagerstown. Going through the packet, you might see multiple different updates. That's just reducing it from a multi-party to a single-party agreement as well, that the city will be engaging with. As long as everyone at the table is fine with moving forward, we'll be bringing this to the regular session for the official vote. And then we'll be going back to each of the prior awardees, minus the last two, as we had already included some language that allowed us to update those and ask them to sign the new modified agreement. If there's any kind of questions, happy to help.
Only 2 will go forward at the time, because I think you had 3, right? You had
The-
3,
Juniper Cafe and
Urban.
Summit Outfitters. We were able to move forward with updates on theirs. But for the ones prior to them that had not signed the revised agreement, just based off of the resolution that we had at that time, we have to bring back the current document in front of you so that we can go to them and say, we need to update this form so we can move forward with your grant with the state of Maryland. Since this is pass-through funded grant opportunity.
I'm okay with it, Chris.
Questions for Chris? Everybody good with that?
All right, thank you so much. Once again, we will bring it back to the regular session.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, council, you should have 2 requests of letter for support. One is from Catherine Grattan for the Rose Hill Cemetery, seeking funding for a project that will help preserve and enhance the historic landmark at Rose Hill Cemetery. And the other one's from Tiffany Ahalt for Convention of Visitors Bureau, preparing a bid for the 2027 USA BMX Gold Cup Northeast Finals at Fairgrounds Park for your review and for your approval. If you're okay with it, both of them, just let me know.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, good. Thank you. City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. I did get a report from staff at MML, and you all behaved yourselves very well down there, from what I understand. They did miss former Mayor Martinez and I being there, but they think that's why things were a little calmer. The 2 of us were there. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all got a lot out of it. It makes my heart happy, and I think the residents should be very pleased that we had such an attendance from not only the council, but staff down there. It goes a long way and shows the state how engaged Hagerstown has become in the municipal league, and that's a very important thing, and I appreciate all of you that took the time to get down and do that. Also, to let you know, I was appointed by the governor to be on the Board of Trustees for the Maryland State Retirement and Pension System. So I'll be providing you all updates as we go through that process. I appreciate the confidence the governor had and the staff had in putting me on that board. There's a lot of people on there that are a heck of a lot smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff, but I'm looking forward to bringing that information back to you all. And Friday night, City Park at dusk is the monthly movie. It is Twisters. Hopefully they are not like we thought we were having here a little bit ago, have to deal with a twister, and the movie will be able to be shown. So that's it. Starts at dusk, always a good time, and that's all I have.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Councilwoman Bell.
Where do I want to start? I feel like as a city it's important that we find that balance. Talked to someone earlier today. It's balance, it's so much going on that needs to be addressed. And we can't use, this is a new administration anymore, we can't use campaigning anymore. It's time, I just feel like that we really get to business. MML was an eye-opener. I'm so happy I got to attend. We listened to so many different panels, and one of the ladies from Gaithersburg said, start holding everybody accountable and call them out. So, and it was an eye-opener. It made me realize that it's so many of us that have so much to offer. And like everyone has said so many times, this is not just a city issue that it needs addressed. It's county, all administration, and we need to start listening. Like so many times we say, we're listening, we need to start doing more than listening. It's important that we know what needs to be done. So with that being said, also I wanted to bring up, it was a grant that the county gets. We had a couple emails back and forth. I would like to understand that a little more. It was the grant that they get, it was an investment grant. I know we had spoke about it a couple times. The last email was just about their administration was looking into it, and I think it was a private meeting that they had to have. Also, with so many of the businesses downtown, I really want to address the thing with the stadium. I read the emails last night, and it's true. We have to know that just because the stadium sits, we have to understand that the stadium really sits in our territory. Our small businesses deserve to be seen and be heard. We're not getting that recognition that we deserve. It's important that if we're down there also, we have to understand that when they leave, they leave. It's not like they're venturing to the businesses downtown. I know that's a big thing, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows that as a small business owner downtown, I am not being seen and just like a lot of other businesses downtown, we're not being seen, we're not being heard. It's a small community that engages within themselves. So I do want that addressed with them as well, so they know that it is not fair to have your business advertised that we need to pay $200 to be advertised. When we're a small business owner, what we look for each month is being able to keep our lights on. What we look for each month is being able to pay the rent. So $200 is a big deal to a small downtown business owner. So, so that, there are just a couple of things I want to address. I want to make sure that we get the county at the table to know that these things are important to address, and we cannot address them on our own. If we don't all come together, that's why so much falls to the wayside. That's why we are trying to conquer this city by ourselves, and it's very unfair. But other than that, which is a lot of other things that need to be addressed. But other than that, we had an amazing Caribbean Carnival Saturday. The turnout was amazing. The weather was amazing. And I just want to thank the city for being a crucial part of that. I know last year was some things with the trash. We made sure we swept that end of the street with our own brooms. So I just want to let that be known that we made sure we got out there afterwards and made sure we cleaned up. And each year everybody's very respectful and does very well at the Caribbean Carnival. So once again, congratulations. And MML was really good. So they do big up your name a lot there. So you have definitely laid your footprint there. So kudos to you.
Oh, well, we'll be there next year.
Councilwoman Anderson.
You switched it up on me. Back to MML, it's something that you have to experience. I do want to say my perspective on it, I felt more like it was a very woman powerhouse. And I mean that in a positive way. With former Mayor Takesha Martinez, Brooke Learman, Janine, she was like the mayor from La Plata. who else was there? Jessica Fitzwater. She was like the Frederick.
Janine James.
Oh, Janine
From
James,
La-
yeah.
La Plata.
Yes, and then Jessica Fitzwater was like the executive for Frederick County, which I'll get into that in a minute, because she works, very well with their mayor, Michael O'Connor. And they're getting a lot of things done for the city of Frederick. So that was great to see and hear from them. Who else was there? I cannot forget her name, Tanisha. She is the city manager for Gaithersburg. She spoke. She was great. She was great. If she could be documented and replayed at this table, I would love that, because she had a lot of gems for newly elected officials, current incumbents. She just had, she was just full of a lot of resource. And being that she's not from the state of Maryland, I believe she came from Chicago, right?
Chicago.
So she's a woman with a lot.
Yep.
She's a lot. Who else was there? We had a lot of female commissioners. I sat next to 4 at almost every meeting that I went to. So again, on my perspective, I felt like this being my first MML, it felt very woman dominated in a great way, in an amazing way. And yeah, I look forward to the one next year. And back to what Erica mentioned, Councilmember Bell, Scott, you were highly missed. Your name was mentioned over and over again. Hagerstown was definitely recognizable. I can't tell you how many convention tables were just like, oh my God, Hagerstown is here. It's like, there's other cities in Maryland, but they would bring up Hagerstown constantly. Brittany, you did a fantastic job, because I have it on video actually. Rockville and Gaithersburg and Bladensburg were amazed by her table, and just complimenting her over and over again on how everything she has is not like what's being repetitive at other tables, like, with the bags and the cards. She really brought that unique touch and made sure she included the small businesses. She brought Hub City Brewery. She really took her time, and she was intentional with her Hagerstown table. So again, I look forward to 2026 MML. Hopefully we can bring the entire city department down.
And you don't have to wait until the conference. I mean, they do enough things during the year, and I would tell you, when you got people like Mayor James, the mayor of Rockville, the mayor of Denton, all of them, call them anytime. They will answer the phone every time you try to call, whether it be a mayor, a council member, any of them, they will pick up the phone.
Yeah, and everyone was great. Everyone
Yeah.
was great and fantastic. So that's all I have.
Councilman Alshire.
Oh, what are you doing?
I'm zigzagging. I haven't zigzagged yet.
That's all right. Yeah, it's been a while since I have attended an MML event, let alone the convention. A couple of things that I noted, obviously, for me, it was a bit different, I think, because it's been such an amount of time since I was at the convention itself last. And I think what I noted from that, because I do like to spend a good bit of time with the vendors just to see what's latest and greatest on the street, simply because that's what I do, right?
Yep.
I think I was surprised by the change in the number of hands-on governmental operations vendors from 6 or 8 years ago to the number of technology-oriented vendors that are sort of like, hey, implement this program and it'll do the work for you, and I have to tell you, AI certainly made its presence, in those presentations, in the discussions, and the vendors that were there. And so it was a little bit, I think, unnerving, because I'm more from the school of thought of, people want to talk to people. People want government to be, people, doing those jobs and getting back. And then when I come back and there was that article last week, about, the instances of AI looking to, for self-preservation. I'm like, I don't know that I want it running the water system, And so it was just a different feel. And then the other thing that I think I took away from the presentations was it was a lot more regulatory oriented. everybody, it just seems, is dealing with more and more regulation-oriented issues.
Yeah.
Rather than that sort of, and I guess 6 or 8 years, rather than 6 or 8 years ago when it was more economic development opportunity. So that was just something that I noticed. I hope that I hope that we don't let one, get in the way of returning, or maintaining direction on that. So.
Councilman Flaherty.
Good visit, that's all I have to say.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It was a good visit, that's all I got to say.
Councilwoman Burnett.
So I'm glad to see that Hagerstown look like Power Rangers, like I always say. Next year we need shirts. But no, for me, the takeaway was just us coming together, attending the workshops together, hearing from other municipalities about some of the issues that we face. Also just getting to know each other. It's assumed that I've known you forever, but there's a lot of things I don't know about you. And Kristen showed up, Councilman Alshire showed up, so I made sure to get a selfie of him showing up, because I was like, oh my gosh, he really didn't show up. I thought she was lying. I thought she was bluffing all the time. But I'm glad to see you there. And definitely missed you, Scott and Tressa, especially at karaoke. Karaoke was so busy that only like Leah and her husband got a chance from Hagerstown to say.
That's what I heard.
That's what I
Yeah,
heard too.
so we gotta pick another night. But definitely a great time and looking forward to the other events from MML. I have one more comment, it's kind of long, but I wrote it down because if not, I'll go in a whole tangent. Over the past several months, I've listened to residents and business owners and community advocates about the growing challenges related to loitering, trespassing, the unsheltered homelessness in parts of our city. Initially, I did not support the proposed outdoor lodging ordinance, which we approved tonight, as I believed we had other tools in place to address these concerns through existing enforcement. However, after continued feedback from citizens and businesses, and with the inclusion of a 6-month sunset clause for evaluation, I reconsidered my stance. Earlier today, I also met with the city directors and the mayor to discuss a range of strategies, ordinances, partnerships, and enforcement approaches to better protect our businesses and neighborhoods. We focused on ongoing concerns in certain neighborhoods and around commercial corridors, specifically related to trespassing and drug activity, overall nuanced issues that are impacting the quality of life of residents and businesses alike. So next steps, I'm going to be drafting up those notes that we discussed along with some other ideas and send that to mayor and council's email and also to the directors that was present today for further consideration and deliberation to come back to the table with, again, bringing the county on board, bringing our state delegation to put some actions into place instead of just talking about it. So what the outdoor lodging does not do is criminalize people simply because they're experiencing homelessness or struggling with addiction. It is not punishment. It's not about punishment. It's about ensuring our public spaces remain safe and accessible for everyone. And I know personally, I went back and forth with each PD about like, where do they go? What, we're not ready as a city, but understand this is a tool that's much more bigger than the work we have, to discuss. The intent is to address behavior that disrupts the health and safety of our shared spaces and not to target individuals based on their circumstances. I believe we must balance compassion with responsibility and continue to invest in outreach, recovery, and housing resources so that enforcement is part of a broader humane strategy. We cannot and should not arrest our way out of complex social issues, but we also cannot ignore the impact these issues are having to our community. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to piggyback off what you said. I just want the residents to know that we are listening. Again, we met today and we have come up with some sort of creative solutions that we hope we can do. And the public reaches out to me via Facebook or Messenger I can't go 5 or 10 feet at a baseball game without listening to someone, and I just want everybody to know we are listening, and we are working at different things that we can do and different solutions that, that all department heads are involved in. So I just want to make that known. My first MML experience was awesome. I mean, the classes that I attended and how it was interactive taught me a lot. Also, it was great to hang out with the council outside of here and build a relationship that way. I thought it was very fun and very engaging, and I loved every minute of it while I was there, and I enjoyed being with you guys too. Last thing, I want to thank city staff because I'm getting a lot of people reaching out to me via email or a text saying how great the fireworks were down at the fairgrounds. And I just want to give city staff kudos for, for everything that they did there. So that's it for me. Do I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion on any items tonight? Okay, we're adjourned.
I gotta go.